Hey guys, wow, it has been a really long time since I last uploaded. I was gonna do a review of Radical Red, but then a major update of the game came out, and now a lot of my comments and criticisms aren't valid anymore, so that's nice. I guess I'll take a look at the second fan game on my bucket list, Pokemon Xenoverse. This game immediately caught my eye because of how really professional it looks. I mean, how many fan games do you know of that have a whole animated trailer? Pokemon Xenoverse is a new fan game built in RPG Maker, and if you haven't noticed, it's kind of blown up recently. And that's for good reason. This is an incredibly well made fan game, to the point that I'm surprised that this isn't a commercial product being sold for money. It's a game that was clearly made by people who understand the strengths and limitations of the RPG Maker engine, and have pushed them to their limits. I'm really excited to talk about this one, so let's get right into it. The primary appeal of this game is undoubtedly the visual presentation. This is the first fan game that I've seen that utilizes Gen 5 animated sprites, which basically means it's a 10 out of 10 right off the bat. I will never stop gushing about how much I love the Gen 5 sprites. The amount of personality and liveliness that they have is unparalleled in the series, not even by the 3D models. But this game isn't content with recycling content already made by Game Freak. It even has its own animated sprites for Gen 6 and 7 mons, and their own new Pokemon. The fan-made Pokemon of this game as a whole are really solid. They genuinely feel like they could have been designed by Game Freak themselves, especially given their high-quality artwork and animated sprites. Combined with the detailed battle backgrounds, the fights in this game look simply gorgeous. Look at this Mimikyu animation! Is this not the greatest thing you've ever seen? You can clearly tell that this is a game made by artists. Every single NPC has a complete character portrait in the style of Ken Sugimori, which really helps to bring the characters alive in a game where everyone's a tiny little bobblehead. Take notes, ILCA. Each area of the game has its own distinct personality reflected in the various NPCs. In your journey, you'll come across Egyptian soldiers, European knights, cowboys and Native Americans, and college students. Sometimes the game shows you these gorgeous full-screen artworks to set the mood. The overworld is also excellent. There's a huge diversity of environments, all with high-resolution tile sets. And even all of that only scratches the surface of this game. The devs have employed pretty much every trick in the book to make such a graphically limited engine look visually interesting. Like, check out this canyon area where the ground below actually moves with your character to give the sensation of depth and perspective. That is genius. But enough about form, let's talk about function. Xenoverse brings a modest but polished set of features to the table. The largest of these is adding a new sound type, which is super effective against Fairy and weak to Dragon? Just like the Fairy type in Gen 6, the sound type appears on new Pokemon as well as old ones, like Jigglypuff, Pyroar, and Kricketune, which really helps to spice up some previously mediocre Pokemon. Not Kricketune though, he still sucks. I think this is really cool. Given how much Pokemon games revolve around typing, this is a big creative risk and changes your approach to team building. The game also has its own take on regional forms called X-Pokemon. Regional forms are a pretty popular trope in fan content nowadays, but this game puts its own twist on the concept. These aren't just wild Pokemon, instead, they're boss fights that take you on with boosted stats and a couple extra HP bars. These fights are a really nice change of pace from the typical trainer battle, They're like max raid dens, but you know, fun. These are the only big new features, but the game is full of little things that keep the game interesting. It even has, and yes, you're seeing this right, a fishing minigame. That's right, baby, that's game of the year right there. Is that bit still funny? As for the difficulty, well, it's pretty much what you'd expect from a standard Pokemon game. The game has an optional EXP share, but instead of being an item, it's a game mode that you pick at the start of your playthrough. I, of course, played with it off, and with that, I would compare this game's difficulty to Black and White 2 on challenge mode. The difficulty mainly comes from the fact that you're at a big level disadvantage, which is good compared to official Pokemon games, but when you look at other fan games like Radical Red and Drayanos' hacks, I think there are more interesting ways to design a difficult Pokemon game. While the game is tough, it's also not very flexible. If you're stuck on a certain boss fight, there's not much you can do to tweak your team or your game plan, other than grind up a couple more levels and try again. I can't really fault Xenoverse for being like this, since it's trying to emulate the official games, but in doing so, I think it holds the same untapped potential I see in Game Freak's games. But that's enough negativity. Another thing about the game that I really like is the story. The writing of Pokemon fan games has a reputation for being, not very good. There's just so many fan games out there that try to be dark and mature, but end up coming off as edgy teenage fan fiction. Bad writing is often the breaking point for a lot of otherwise recommendable fan games out there, which is why I was very pleasantly surprised when I played this game. The writing of Xenoverse is actually really high quality. The characters that you encounter are likable and don't come off as obnoxious one-notes. My personal favorites are the Geist team, who are basically just a big Ghostbusters reference. Oh yeah, did I mention there's a lot of references in this game? The plot is definitely more out there than a conventional Pokemon game, but it's executed so solidly that it never comes off as awkward or cringy. It sort of strikes the perfect balance between fan writing and professional writing. My only real complaint about the story is that while the side characters are all great, certain more central characters feel a bit weak. For example, your opposite gender counterpart is implied to have a crush on you, but you just don't really interact with them enough to actually call it a romance, so it sort of feels unearned. But aside from that, this is easily the best story in any Pokemon fan game that I've played. It genuinely feels like something made by a team of professional writers. Part of the story even takes inspiration from the Pokemon Adventures manga, which is just so based. Like, please read the Adventures manga, it's goated. But getting back on topic, what really makes this game stand out to me overall is just how high quality it is. Like, if I didn't know better, you could easily pass this game off to me as a commercial product made by a professional dev team. The game doesn't try to do anything big with the Pokemon formula, but it's just so polished and well made. The visuals of this game are undoubtedly the best that I've seen in any Pokemon fan game, period. In my mind, this game sort of feels like a strange, alternate reality where Game Freak rejected the idea of going 3D and instead chose to refine and push their 2D sprite-based games to the limit. And you know what? I think it really works. This game is a banger. Oh, and also apparently they made a spin-off for this game as a mobile game on Google Play? How did they?